This is the Dexter Report. In-depth discussions and real conversations with true leaders making a mark in their community. Here's your host, Joe Dexter.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Dexter Report, in-depth conversations, true community leaders. I'm Joe Dexter, your host. You can find out more about how I can help you tell your story at joedextermedia.com. This week, a great guest, Ian Altobello, joins me from the Central Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Yes, have you heard of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan? There's a good chance, if you're from North Carolina, where I'm at now, you haven't, but you need to know about this beautiful community the Upper Peninsula is. And it's not Canada, no, it's part of Michigan. It's a beautiful, beautiful place in where I got to spend 10 years going to college, as well as developing my skills as a radio DJ and host, as well as an operations director at several local stations in Marquette, Michigan, under Sovereign Communications and Northern Star Broadcasting, 92.3 WJPD. Oh man, those days were great days. Today, I'm glad to celebrate those wonderful times where I got my start in Marquette, Michigan with a Marquette man. Ian Altobello joins us of the Boreal Collective. This is a great, great way to understand marketing and to develop marketing in the community aspect, and why I want to speak with Ian about what he's doing in Marquette to help those brand themselves and to help those just grow in the community. It's a beautiful collective way of approaching marketing, and sometimes, you just got to go back to your roots to find new solutions, to find new answers, and to find great people doing great things. I was so happy when Ian reached out because, plain and simple, you can learn so much by going back to your roots and following people that are doing things others aren't. And that's what Ian is doing with the Boreal Collective. Creative marketing that pairs branded strategy with a collective, co-op approach. I love it. Because the Boreal Collective understands that growth of collective members equals growth of their clients. Growth leads to growth, and innovation leads to success. The Boreal Collective is fully remote. It's a branded strategy idea that's like a co-op. I love that idea and that simplicity. While it seems simple in nature, that is the way that business is translating in this world in 2021. The more we collaborate, the more we work together, the more that we understand that if I grow, you grow, the better our businesses, our nonprofits, and our community leadership will be. Plain and simple. We have to work together. I know this sounds silly, it sounds basic, but in the world that we live in today, where we're so separated, we also have to remember that we can work together through digital means. We can be together through digital means, and we can accomplish great things through digital means. And that's what the Boreal Collective is doing in Marquette, Michigan, and what Ian is focusing on. You can find out more about the Boreal Collective by visiting facebook.com/The Boreal Collective. We'll put how to spell that in the show notes for this episode. Before I begin my conversation with Ian Altobello of the Boreal Collective, I want to remind you that you can support the Dexter Report. Are you a fan of in-depth conversations and true community leaders having a spotlight and a place to share their story? You can support this podcast by becoming a supporter. Visit anchor.fm/The Dexter Report/support and become a monthly contributor. From 99 cents per month to $9.99 per month to anything. I would love your support, and I appreciate your support listening to this podcast as well, with the great conversations that we're having with people across this country and right here in our own community. Support the Dexter Report. Anchor.fm/The Dexter Report/support. Ian and I will talk growth strategy, being creative in a technical world, and so much more on the Dexter Report. In-depth conversations with true community leaders. In-depth conversations, true community leaders. This is the Dexter Report. This week we go to a great community, one of the communities that I'm very fond of, that gets more than 200 inches of snow. Ian Altobello joins us with the Boreal Collective. Ian, as this is a crazy moment for me because you know how much I love that community. You're back in your home community. And the fact that I get to talk to you and you're not playing Westwood football, and I'm not calling your name is pretty awesome.
It is very cool. Super excited to see you, Joe, and talk to you. Man, high school feels like a long time ago because I guess it was.
Well, for those that don't know, before I was here in North Carolina, I lived in Marquette, Michigan for 10 years, where Ian is based with the Bereal Collective. The Central Upper Peninsula is a very special community. Ian, tell us a little bit about the community and what you're doing with the Bereal Collective.
Yeah, the community up here, and it's one of those things that you have to experience. Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
You know, we're surrounded by Lake Superior, and then you want to go down for another 50 minutes, you're on Lake Michigan. We're surrounded by these Caribbean-style waters that really puts a really nice, gentle environment here in the UP. And that's the kind of name behind the Boreal Collective, is because we live in the Boreal Forest up here. And I believe the Boreal Forest is one of the world's largest forests as far as how it, expands all the way out west, all over the world. But it's a really interesting forest, and it's a self-sufficient model, which is what I've kind of transferred over to the Boreal Collective as a marketing and creative company. The people in Marquette, I've been to a lot of places myself, and it's just different. It's really actually hard to describe. But I would say that if you are interested in starting a business, I have never been in a place where I felt more confident to do that.
It's crazy that the acceptance of different businesses, if you have an idea there, and this is what community is all about, right? If you have an idea, no matter what it is, if it's in that nonprofit sector, small business sector, people support you because they know your intent is in the right place. And I think Marquette as a whole up there in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it shows you the example that can be set. If you have true intentions, people will instantly believe in what you're doing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And it's been actually amazing since the real big shutdown back in March, as far as the quarantine goes. There's a lot of communities that are considered micro communities here in the Upper Peninsula. And in fact, the Keweenaw Peninsula is one of the top micro communities for where people are moving to from larger metro areas. As far as like some sort of infrastructure goes, yeah, we're a little bit behind, but really this place is so great, especially if you're in an outdoor rec. I mean, I can literally, where I live right now, I can cross-country ski from, no problem. We have lit trails all through the night, and that's really just the beginning of it. But it's super inclusive, and if you really want that outdoor rec sort of vibe and being in a place that is super, I guess a really good example too is a guy from Kingsford, Michigan, which is on the southeastern tip of the Upper Peninsula, recently moved back with his wife from New York City. And in fact, I just got him pretty steady video work as well as writing work with a local economic development organization here. But that right there is a great example of it's super possible and it's super inclusive here, which really that's my collective model as well for my creative business is, using all the talent that we do have here and abroad to other states and all over the world to really make a business that is super custom to what, creative and marketing really should be. Because there are a lot of issues with creative companies and agency models where they say, oh, great, we have our one designer on staff. Well, they're probably super talented, but to say that they can handle every type of brand, that's super false. What happens there is now you're forcing a designer to do something they don't even like to do. Now they're doing art that they don't even want to produce. And I really want to be able to use people that say it is like a floral shop that needs a new logo. I probably want more of a feminine designer on that rather than someone who's masculine. And so the Boreal Collective is super inclusive, basically just like Marquette and the Upper Peninsula is.
I mean, and that's so key right there, what you said. It's like a community, right? You have to have a group of folks working on things that they're passionate about. If you ask me to make a flower, Ian, it's not going to go very well. I can promise you that. I consider myself a graphic guy, but it's probably not going to go as well as somebody else. If you believe in that power of community, and you got to show it too in what you provide to your clients and also to your community. That's one thing I think you value much more than some other might, just because it's important to educate and move forward with those thoughts. Because in communities like ours that are more quote unquote rural, I don't think they're rural, but that's the technical term.
Yes,
it's more important to be able to teach and show those things.
Yeah, and one thing that has been an issue in rural America too is giving younger people the ability to know what this type of, like, to know that you can make money in graphic design. You can make money as a videographer. Somewhere along the line, someone said, you can't do that. Become a nurse, right? So I've met, I use this all the time, but I know a nurse practitioner, and she is literally can hand draw. She has, some logos on Black Rocks brewery cans. She's amazing. And yes, she's working a hospital job, which is great, pays her well. But is that really who she is? Probably not. And, the collective really wants people to quit doing the stuff that they don't like to do. And let's get you on the path of doing exactly what you need to do. And the example that I use of the guy who recently moved to the Upper Peninsula from New York, that's the perfect example right there. Is he was working a job that he didn't like in New York so he could afford to do art. But now he's doing art as a job, and it's literally, that pays me right there. I mean, it's so rewarding.
He's Ian Altobello, the Bereal Collective in Marquette, Michigan, a beautiful small community, one of the best communities in America, in my opinion. Joining us here on the Dexter Report, Real Conversations, True Community Leaders. That is a big part of it, right? I mean, it is finding our passion and believing in it, in buying into it. And tell us a little bit from your perspective, your journey to get there, because where you are now isn't where you were. And it's so important to understand and value the journey to get where you're going.
Sure. Yeah. And really, it's a super long-winded story. I had a really cool instance where I kept on running into this blue heron, and I eventually dreamt of it. And I seen it the same day. And I just thought, I don't really see blue herons that often. And really, I was trying to apply to jobs and trying to just do the mainstream thing. And really what the totem meaning behind a blue heron is saying that you are ignoring a path that you should be on. And so I kept on, at one point, I just had to follow an instinct of a certain sign, and I went for it. What really made me, I really extrapolated a lot of flaws from my time in an agency. And you hear this all the time saying, oh, agencies, they're super flawed. They're this, they're that. They have this negative connotation. Well, if we keep talking about it, we're not going to fix it. So what are the flaws and how can we do that? So for one, the Bereal Collective is fully remote. I believe that life should revolve around work, not the other way around. So, if you do want to say, hey, I think I need to change, I need to move out to Colorado, and say you do live in the Upper Peninsula, or say you do live in North Carolina, you can bounce wherever you can go, because now we're in a super digital age, and it took almost a quarantine to show us that we can do this. And so I talked about those flaws in an agency. One of those is, having a brick and mortar for this style of business. It's not necessary. It's not needed. And a large part of an overhead for an agency is their rent or their whatever they have to pay for their building. So I cut that out. And also, since it is a collective model, we do have a core group of people that are, and since I am young, as far as a business goes, we don't have our full core yet, but hopefully by the end of this year, we're going to start having our salaries. And so regardless, even if it's in a year or 10 years, our core group of salary people are going to be, generally low. It's going to be a lean machine. But beyond that is that inclusive model of, hey, we got a designer here, we got a videographer here, and keeping all of this stuff flowing. And so that model actually cuts out a lot of overhead right there because of, not having to worry about all this salary, on, all the time. So saving money in rent, keeping it remote, and then obviously the whole salary thing allows me to bid jobs a lot less and really make them more affordable, scale it to the business. I think there's been so much, negative connotation over the price of creative and marketing services that people are afraid to use them. And that should not be the case here. So really, since I'm able to bid jobs a lot less, I'm actually able to pay people typically double what they make at their 9 to 5, or even if they're freelancing too. So what I've been able to do too is I've actually flipped the profit model on myself. So I believe that say we're doing like a 60-40 split here. I believe that 60 should go to the creative or the person on the job. And then I take the 40 for handling communication, getting you the actual physical work. But I really think that the credit goes to the creative. It goes to the person who's doing the work. And I think that's one of the largest mistakes agencies make.
It goes back to a couple things, being mobile and being remote, in my opinion, Ian. And one of them is the mobility. You talked about the being in a brick and mortar. Sometimes we just have to evolve, right? I worked in newspaper. I worked in on air and radio. Both are struggling industries. They both have a point and they both have a place in this world, and they're both very important. But
Absolutely.
You have to evolve. You have to change. If you are a collective agency, a marketing agency, or somebody that needs that work, number one, if it's a brick and mortar, they probably have processes that continuously be the same. So your marketing is going to be the same as your competitor if they're in the same, or it's going to look similar to other folks that have entrusted in them to bring marketing. And secondly, if your collective agency does not believe in an iPhone mobile, this is the world. This is the world where we live in now. So you have to have people that are sharing your brand and your message that believe in mobility. It's not mobility, but but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Change is scary at the point of it all, Joe. Change is really hard. And there's a lot of people that aren't willing to do that. And that unfortunately affects a lot. It trickles down into, your employers and things like that. But, it's not just about working remote. It's giving the people the opportunity to have that option to, hey, if you live in Marquette, Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula, and you really just want to get out, you shouldn't have to quit your job and search for something in Denver, right? Don't worry about it. Let's make it seamless. Keep doing the work that you're crushing and go live where you want to live. Go be a ski bum for a little bit. I don't care.
Ian Altabello joining us here, the Bereal Collective. You can find out more, facebook.com/the Bereal Collective. I want to learn more about your time in our in our area of the country, the South. Tell us a little bit about your time in Nashville.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. I probably applied to over 130 different companies, upon graduation at Northern Michigan University. And it is tough, man. I mean, I was graduating with 2.5 years of experience in, social media, account management, digital marketing, and it's really tough. And I did my best, and it came to a point, I think it was in June. I graduated in May of 19. And I was in a 3-way competition, I guess you could say, as far as like the job hunt goes. And so I was hopefully looking at a place in Vermont. They were some sort of an automotive company, kind of like a cars.com type. And then I was also looking at moving to Marietta, Georgia, to work for Yamaha corporate. And then also an opportunity to work with celebrity clientele in Nashville. Really what came down to it is that Nashville opportunity was my first one, and I took it. They were the first offer on the table, and I went down there, and it was really great. During my time, I was able to release 3 singles by Cole Swindell. I promoted one song that summer by Luke Bryan, which hit the country charts at a #1. probably toward in October of 19 that year. So, I can say that I am part of a country charts #1, released music videos, been on really cool creative processes with, I would say, some of the most talented people I've ever met in my life in Nashville. But again, and you probably hear this all the time about the music industry, but there's a lot of toxic things that happen. And I didn't really want to associate myself with those things anymore. So really, and Joe, what really why I took that opportunity in Nashville too is because when I, had all this experience in social media, I was kind of in a hole, and I thought, I don't know how to get out of, applying to social media jobs because I don't really have anything else. So I said, if I'm going to be in social media, I'm going to get to the highest level possible and make the most of it. And so that's really what happened is, I worked really hard, and I got to a place where, I was handling multi-million follower accounts. And what I thought would have been really cool, it really wasn't exactly what I thought. And really what it all came down to is I found more pleasure and enjoyment out of helping those small to mid-sized companies or businesses or even startups than somebody that's a big superstar. And really that was super important for my character.
I think a lot of people get lost, and I tell my clients this all the time and my community members, in the fact that 1 million followers is great, when in reality, if I have 1,000 followers and they're organic, it's an organic reach relationship where those 1,000 people are there for me all the time as a quote unquote collective, like what you're doing, it's way more powerful, way more. You get so much more out of it than, say, if you had 999,000 followers, but a 10% reach or whatever. It just feels different.
I would say, to me, it felt less connected. It felt less interpersonal. And really that was a big part of it too. Like, I felt like what I was doing really wasn't getting appreciated, even though within 60 seconds, I had 5,000 likes. Like, it's not the same. And I really want people to realize that too, that sometimes getting to the highest level isn't always the best place. Find your happy spot, find where you want to go and need to be, but it doesn't have to be that high level because there's a lot of stuff that comes with it.
And there's some power behind the likes and the follows on Facebook, right? My community, I don't know about Marquette, but my community is mostly Facebook. That's where they interact. The other social media platforms aren't as popular here yet. You can have as many followers as you want, but it's not going to lead to the success that you're looking for necessarily. I don't think followership is something that we should worship at this point. What are your thoughts on that? And for example, I'll use an example for one of my shows in the community, the live stream show that I do. I have 120 something followers on Facebook, right? I have over 1,000 views on each video. So it's more about the interaction in the organic content that you provide people and the information you provide, and the more of you provide that will be more beneficial than necessarily followers.
Yeah. I was going to make a quick couple notes here on that kind of statement. I have clients that are super worried about growing their page likes or their page followers. But to keep it simple, I have clients that are really worried about their page likes. And I tell them not to really worry about that. What you really got to worry about, and if you go into analytics, into your page analytics on Facebook, you can go all the way down into your overview and you'll see there's a competitor spot where you can compare to your other local competition. And every week we are blowing them out of the water on engagement. It's not even close. It's probably 1,000 engagements off. It's not even in the same ballpark. Yet we go between 2 or 3 as far as page likes versus our competition. And I try saying, don't worry about the page likes. The page likes will come with time. What you really want is to cultivate a community that's super engaged. I would rather have 10 fans in an audience going, woo, woo, than 100,000 kind of just going, oh, okay, whatever. And it's the same thing, right? So social media is very similar to what, real life is like in a way. And really it's like, you can have 1,000 crappy friends. That's fine. But you have 5 good friends. You have 2 good friends that will drive 15 hours to pick your ass up. That's really, the basis of it all.
He's Ian Altabella joining us here on the Dexter Report. In-depth conversations, true community leaders with the Bereal Collective. You can find out more, facebook.com/the Bereal Collective. I got to ask you about your photography and a little bit about just being somebody you want to be instead of pinholing yourself. And you talked about this a little bit. You were a photographer. You've done many different things. I think it's important for people to realize in 2021, I don't have to be Joe Dexter journalist. I can be Joe Dexter journalist, photographer, videographer, live streamer. You can do multiple things in this day and age and be successful.
Yeah, exactly. And really that is, where a lot of people are struggling. And really, like, when I was approaching graduation, I figured I need to figure out any way possible to separate myself from all the other social media coordinators, all the other people that say that they manage 10 plus accounts or whatever. So what I did is I picked up Adobe Photoshop. I picked up Adobe Lightroom. I picked up Adobe Premiere Pro. So then I set myself up as a content creator as well as a social media expert, combining my photography already with a marketing background, and really just kind of going with it. But I will say that it does run into some issues as far as, like, you think about the people that are the videographers full time, right? And like, sometimes it's hard to justify, especially with the content flow of what social media is really like. Video isn't really long form anymore. So really what happens now is videographers and creatives really just have to switch their style of work. Like, back in the day, you could charge 10 grand for a 60-second video. But for me, as a digital marketer in social media, 60 seconds is pretty useless to me, to be honest, right? Because I think the average watch rate is like 8 to 15 maybe on social media. So why are you going to spend all that time when it's really not going to get utilized anyways? So it's really the shift in like content, as far as like what that looks like. But yeah, I basically, and like, you do a lot of stuff too, Joe, and it's, I think it's making yourself available more often, right? Not pigeonholing. Exactly. And I don't know if that's entrepreneurship or what that is, but yeah, I mean, I feel like we're both kind of that similar in that realm.
There is the development and evolution side of it, and there's also just if you have a passion to do something else, don't be afraid to do it. For example, I don't know, I'm sure actually, Clubhouse is an app that is now on the iOS that is blowing up in the marketing realm, in community realm, and it's an app that, did I think I would be familiar with Clubhouse or on Clubhouse all the time? No, but I'm using it as a tool to increase my business and to also connect with community, because that's my mission statement. I can connect with community members and do things in Clubhouse that I might not be able to do in other apps. That's the big part of it, is just being open to learning and trying new things, especially if you're a small business, nonprofit type, or looking for that coverage. Yeah, you can go onto an app that's new. You can go to a world that's new and open up lanes that were not open before.
Yeah, and honestly, I tell people that are trying to grow their business too. I mean, I'm a young business owner, but I get I feel like if I had a few $1 million or something, I could start up like a really cool business, whatever it sold, right? But I love the sale process anyways. But really what I tell people is, I say, you can't be afraid to ask. You can't be afraid to ask for help. Ask if you need help with your website because it's crap. Or, it's super simple, and all you got to do is ask. And also, kind of bringing that back to my company, the Bereal Collective, is I have met tons of beautiful artists along my journey of life, as is. And I talk to them all the time, and I will say probably 90% of those people lean introverted, right? As far as their outward and inward communication goes. So if they're trying to pitch their services all the time and, go to these big connector events, for those people, that is really mentally and physically exhausting. And I even know what professors that are introverted, and at the end of the day, they could cry. They could cry. They're so tired, and it's because they're not supposed to be doing that. That's not how they thrive. And so, if I can take that little bit of, communication and that, that extroverted side of it out for you, and you are just doing what you do, that's so important.
That's the art of the craft, right? I can take what somebody is thinking and feeling and wants to share, but it's a burden on them to share, and I can put it out there exactly what they're thinking in their mind, or at least pretty darn close. Not exact, but pretty darn close, and they don't have to go through that pain. They don't, if they're in your area or if they're working with you, they don't have to go through that pain, and that's what we're here for, man. We get thrilled out of it. We get that passion into us, and it builds us up. So really understanding the people you work with or the people that you're going to hire is very important.
So important. And I think it's even more important too, to if you are starting off a business, or, you're like, I know I can do it. I know I can. You just have to take that first step, right? And again, it's really just asking for help. Like when I've been stuck in a spot, I just go, okay, who can I ask for help? And I have never been turned down. And in fact, I've literally, I've reached out to people, and I might take one on the chin, right? I might do a free video. For example, I did a free video for the Children's Museum here in Marquette. Beautiful organization, nonprofit. But I know that that's going to come back. And I actually had a meeting this morning with another individual, and I said, whatever you believe in, the universe has to pay you back if you are reciprocating and sending out this good karma, and really just appreciating people. And I guess one of the most important parts too is if you are, and I was kind of bringing this full circle, but if you are starting a business, it is so important to surround yourself with people that are on that same journey with you, or are that same energy. If you are trying to start a business, or you think about it, but you're surrounding yourself with negative people, or people that don't really understand it or don't want to get to that next level of whatever that may be, you're going to stay in that same situation. So I think there's a funny quote about find your tribe type of a thing, but it's true. If you surround yourself with negative people, there's a good chance that you're probably going to come out negative.
What comes to my mind as you speak on that is one of the videos I've seen that you've done, and you can put this free passion into you, by the way, as well. You should help local nonprofits as you did, and that stuff will come full circle, but so will the stuff that you create for yourself, like the video that you created about your own freedom, I think it was 2-3 years ago. If there's so much power in freedom and ability to do what you want to do, and the passion to follow your gut and your instinct. Your gut told you, Ian, I need to make this video for the Children's Museum, and it will pay you back, but it also fulfills you, right? There's so much power in that freedom to do what you feel like you were meant to do.
Oh, the best. I mean, yeah, I could talk about that all day. It's literally, it's untangible, if you will. It's the best. And even when I talked about John, who recently moved to the Upper Peninsula from New York, watching him grow as an artist and watching him break that mold and be like, I can make art a career. This is actually possible. It does that's money in the bank right there for me.
Absolutely. Ian Altobello joining us here on the Dexter Report, in-depth conversations, true community leaders. Before we head out of here, Ian, I got to ask you, how can people get in contact with you? How can they learn more about the Bereal Collective?
Absolutely. So I really am looking for people of all creative types, of all technicalities. If you are a graphic designer, photographer, videographer, web developer, web designer, writer, SEO writer, creative writer, you name it, I really would like to hear from you. And one great way to do that is to send me an email at theborealcollective@gmail.com. Also, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook, or we'll respond to you there. Basically, our @names are @theborealcollective. And I'm sure, Joe, you'll be putting that in the copy so people can find the right spelling and all that jazz.
Absolutely. And if you need to have inspiration of one of the most beautiful places in the world, just check out Ian's photography. Check out what the Boreal Collective is doing as well. It's just a beautiful place. I'm glad to reconnect with you, Ian, and good luck in the future. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep believing in what you're doing, because it's going to make a difference, and it is already making a difference.
I appreciate that, Joe, and I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure.
He's a creator, he's a marketer, he's an analytical thinker. Ian Altobello joins us here on the Dexter Report, in-depth conversations, true community leaders. Glad to have him on to talk about the Boreal Collective, the fully remote creative marketing company that's pairing branded strategy with a collective approach. You can find out more by visiting facebook.com/the Boreal Collective. We'll have those links for you as well in the description, so you can find the great message that Ian and the Boreal Collective is sharing with their communities, because they understand one very key thing that we need to understand. Listen to this mission statement that is on the Facebook page for the Boreal Collective. Listen to this great message, because it's key for all of us. The key successor in life is growth. Growing businesses, growing people, growing communities. That's the mission of the Boreal Collective. And that should be our mission in life as well. As individuals that care about our community, as businesses that care about our community, nonprofits that care about the best for our community, we need to continue to grow like the Boreal Collective is, in a collective approach. To learn more about the Boreal Collective, visit facebook.com/the Boreal Collective. This is the Dexter Report. In-depth conversations, true community leaders. Have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Dexter Report. To learn more about our community and how Dexter Media can assist telling your story, visit facebook.com/Dexter Media Solutions.